Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, our final first look exploring session looking at Captain Thomas Stukeley, the life and death thereon. Spoilers, it's the final session. There's going to be some death. If you weren't expecting that, prepare yourself now for this close of this epic text that's quite chunky. We've got a lot of text to get through today. We're in Spain at the moment, and there's all sorts of intrigue and stuff as Stukeley gets himself embroiled in what's going on in the court and the wider military stuff that he might get round to doing again later. Reading today, Stukeley is...
Lois, here in London.
Reading Lantado and Antonio is...
Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Hernando, Calipolis, So I can't read it. Somebody say it out loud. Calipolis, that's the one. So I need to look somewhere else at my writing. I've written over it, so I can't read it. Readings and soldier number one is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Nuncio, Botello, and soldier number two is...
Hello, Helen Good in Hull.
Reading Marshal, Chorus, and Abdelmelec is...
Me, Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Shipmaster, Muly, and Italian soldier is... Muted.
Sarah Blake, actor, writer, and director based in Germany.
Reading Philip, Messenger, and Hemet is...
Hello, Dan, actor based in Montpellier, France.
And hopefully joining us from the ether, hopefully about to come into the room any second now. Reading Sebastian is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
And I'm your host... Oh, no, there's still more to go. Vernon, Cardinal, and Avero today is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I have been forgotten. Then again, after yesterday, it's fine.
I wouldn't forget you. I couldn't do that. And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and generally hoping to keep things moving in a forward kind of direction, though, as I seem to have covered all my notes with notes on top of notes. Just reading words is a bit of a struggle at the moment. So, without further ado, we're going to dive into scene 16. Enter Vernon. Vernon, who we haven't seen for a while, who I'm sure will be delighted to bump into Stukeley any moment now, and a master of a ship with the Lantado and 2 or 3 officers.
Signor Lantado, by your patience, it's no rack, nor you by law can seize upon the ship or goods here cast away.
Sir, your negative is of no force. You are part owner, happily, of the ship, or else Cape merchant ventured in the freight. Your speech is partial, save ship and goods.
Examine, then, the master of his oath.
So we intend.
Sir, you have known me long, and never knew me falsify my word, much less mine oath, which I will freely pawn my life and all to testify the truth.
Whence was the ship?
Of London.
What was her name?
The Pelican.
What burden was she of?
200 ton.
And what her lady?
Packs of English cloth. This gentleman ought neither ship nor goods, but come from Britain as a passenger. For at St. Malo's we had cause to touch, to take aboard a merchant's factor there. And there we found this honest gentleman, very desirous to be shipped for Spain. In luckless hour he brought his trunks aboard, and in more hapless time the same are lost.
Small loss were that if all the rest were safe. The men are lost, only we two survive, whom you, by shows of pity, have enforced to come ashore and leave the crazed ship. And will ye now forget what ye have sworn, and seek to make a rack of that is none? Let us aboard again, and let us bide the hazard of the tempest and the tide.
Ye are ashore, and thank me for your lives. Which said, why should you value ship or goods? You swear you are but passenger. Let pass. Let the owners and the merchant bear the loss.
What if he should? The master then am I, and I were dead. And were I dead, if any did survive and live aboard, ye cannot make a rack.
No, I will kneel before the King of Spain before my countrymen such loss sustain.
Proud Englishman, since thou art peremptory, thou shalt not kneel nor see his majesty. Away with them!
Trumpet sound. Enter King Philip leaning on Stukeley's shoulder. Alva de Vita Valdez, that was the messenger. Hernando before Bear. Hernandez, a courtier before Bear, and the governor Hernando after with other. Lots of people that enter.
Heroic Stukeley, on our royal word, we never did esteem a present more than those fair Irish horse of your frank gift.
Redoubted Philip, royal Catholic king, it pleaseth so the bounty of your spirit to reckon them that are of little worth. But if your highness knew my inward zeal to do you service past the world's compare, you would esteem these 30 Irish jades as 30 mites to all the Indian mines.
How we esteem your present and yourself, our instant favors shall advertise you. Alva and Sancta de Nulla shall declare to gallant Stukeley what regard we bear.
Cross of all crosses, why should sea and wind spare me to live where double death's assigned? Is it possible that Stukeley, so dejected in England, lives in Spain in such respect?
Stay, what are these?
Poor suitors to your grace, an English ship is split here in the race, and this Lantado, the vice admiral, coming aboard and seeing us alive, the sole remainder of 100 souls, enticed us by Christian promises to come ashore as pitying our case. Our feet no sooner touched the Spanish earth than he would make a rack of ship and goods.
Dread sovereign, true, the ship is split and sunk, and every billow o'errakes the hull. This living couple crept up to the poop, in dread of danger and of present death. In charity, I took to save their lives.
With promise and proviso, gracious king, that no advantage should be ta'en thereof, else had I stayed, though he had gone ashore.
Why, what are you?
The master of the ship.
And he the owner or the venturer, and would deceive us of our royalty.
Upon my life, great king, I meant it not. I am no owner yet, nor yet venturer. I came but in her as a passenger. But afore I saw the tide was at the highest, and ebbing water would have laid us dry, the ship belonging to my place of birth, I was resolved to bide the utmost brunt and save the ship and goods for the English crown.
Whereof you may be one.
Hear me, great king. If you believe this breast have any spark of honor or of vulgar honesty, then credit me, this gentleman that speaks was never owner of a ship in its life, nor merchant venturer, though both trades be good, but well derived of rich and gentle birth, holds it his bliss to be a traveler.
Your protestations have persuaded us. Lantado, leave them and discharge the ship. And gentlemen and shippers stay without. This honorable countryman of yours shall bring our further pleasure for your good.
If in the basilisk's for prizing life be safety for the object it beholds, then Stukeley may to Vernon comfort bring. Else men are safe at sea when sirens sing.
Exit Vernon, Shipmaster, and Lantado.
Now, gallant Stukeley, boast of Philip's grace, by such employments as we have assigned, the king our cousin, Don Sebastian, solicits us for aid to Africa in hope to conquer the barbarians. The father princes of that parched soil are in contention who shall wear the crown, and the young king of Portugal believes, and so do we, their strife shall breed him peace. And for he stands engaged by royal oath to help the king Fez against his foe, and craves assistance from us of his blood. We have consented with condition to give it him if Rome doth hold it fit, and you, brave Stukeley, are the man select to carry to the Pope our embassy, and we will furnish you for these affairs. Do not admire the strangeness of our choice in pointing you before our native nobles, but think our love, our hope, or your desert, or all conjoined, advance you to this place.
Most sacred and most mighty King of Spain, though many reasons might withstand belief that you would choose me your ambassador, Yet, since your highness twice hath spoke the word, I humbly credit and accept the charge.
And to defray your charge in our affairs, our bounty shall exceed her usual bounds. First, for it is the time of Jubilee. Next, for you go from Philip, King of Spain. And last, for high regard we hold you in.
Which favor I will study to deserve.
It is deserved. Valdis, deliver you 5,000 ducats in Don Stukeley's hands. Here are letters and commission with such instructions as concern the cause. So much for that. Now for your countrymen, whose ship miscarried here upon our coast, we do allow them all convenient help, for your sake to recover ship and goods, and that their loss may seem so much the less. We do acquit them of all custom fees. So, gallant Stukeley, carry them these news, and make you ready for these great affairs.
Ready to serve and follow your command.
And exit Stukeley.
Well, not these English like their country fish called gudgeons that will bite at every bait. How easily their credulous fools believe the thing they fancy or would wish of chance, using no precepts of our perspective to see what end each project sorteth to. Hernandez, tell me what is thy conceit of our election and of Stukeley's worth?
Most gracious and dread sovereign, pardon me to speak of Stukeley in particular, because your frowns lie heavy on me yet, for that I did and offered him in Cadiz. But generally, I censure the English thus: hardy, but rash; witty, but overweening. Else would this English hot brain weigh the intent your highness hath in thus employing him?
Thou judgest rightly. It is not for love. We bear this nation that we grace him thus, but use him as the agent of our guile. For if the matter were of great import, or that we would keep touch with Portugal and aid his voyage into Barbary, Stukeley should have no hand in these affairs. But now we deal as lords of vineyards use, stop with one bush, 2 gaps into their ground. One must we send to Rome to Jubilee, and Stukeley for his gift must have reward. One bounty gilted with employment's grace serves both the turns and sends proud Stukeley hence. Valdis, 5,000 ducats, pay him that. So are we rid of a fond Englishman.
And they exit. So Vernon, having similar problems that Stukeley had earlier of, a slightly different case of, in the sense that his ship went a cropper, but similarly having some issues with local government, and basically sees Stukeley and goes, "Oh, sake, not him again." And then even worse, Stukeley's quite helpful and nice to him. Damn him. I'm sure that's creating all sorts of psychic trauma in Vernon's mind that there's really not a happy bunny about. Meanwhile, Philip doing sort of cunning things, planning in cunning ways, future stuff that will have impact. Thoughts in the room about this scene, following on from where we were before and hinting to where it's going. Helen.
Very interesting maritime laws of salvage here. Very interesting indeed.
In what way, Helen?
Oh, God, I don't know. I haven't worked it out yet. But there's stuff there to be mined for, is what I'm saying.
Alan.
Yeah, the fact that Philip is saying he's going to not charge any custom duties is somewhat of an empty offer, given that there doesn't seem to be anything surviving from the wreck.
Other thoughts? Lynn?
Yeah, I was saying yesterday that Stukeley does seem to lead this charmed life, but it looks like his charm might be running out. I mean, like in the beginning of this scene, the king's all like, "Oh, I'm so grateful to you, you're my new best friend," and I'm gonna give you this command in our war, and the King of Spain, not an insignificant ally at this point, seems to be favoring him, and then as soon as he's off stage, he's like, "Ah, man, he believed me." Har har har.
Oops. Yes. Stukeley is the mark in this particular setup, and we had hints of where this was going earlier when, of course, we had the embassage from the Portingales, and we know that Philip is not to be trusted.
No, he's duplicitous. Right.
Yeah. Briony.
Yeah, I really like what it's doing with the racism, I guess, because we were all really braced yesterday for the first Irish scene, and then it actually wasn't anywhere near as bad as some of the other things we've read. People at the time writing about different nations, and that's kind of, we just had the worst of it really. But they were talking about the English, and that just made such a nice, refreshing change that it seems to be realizing the pitfalls of such cultural commentaries and misunderstandings, and it's kind of poking fun at them, which I like.
At the same time as post Armada spending an awful lot of time in saying how duplicitous the Spanish are. So it's having its cake and eating it in so many different ways. Other thoughts before we move on? I think we've got our head back in the game. Helen.
Yeah, there is one point. At this stage, Spain was an ally of England. So the fact that Stukeley is hobnobbing with the King of Spain is not treason. Yet.
Okay, let us move forward to scene 17. Enter Stukeley with Vernon, who I'm sure is delighted to be in his company, and the shipmaster.
But is it certain that my wife is dead?
Sure as I live, I saw her buried. First died the mother, then the daughter next. Then old Sir Thomas Curtis lived not long and died not rich. But what was left he gave part to his brother, part to the hospital.
Oh, then where's the part he left his son-in-law?
Your part and grand part were consumed too soon to have a portion left you at the last.
Friend Vernon, leave such discontenting speech. Your melancholy overflows your spleen, even as the billows overrack your ship, whose loss the king will, for my sake, restore. Then tax me not, good Vernon, with grand parts. Oh, it's 20,000 pound to a free heart. 20 weeks' charges for a gentleman. 1,000 pound a week's but fair expense.
Your wife died not worth such a week's expense.
What remedy? Yet Stukeley will not want. She's gone, and all her friends their heads are laid. Good resurrection have they at the last, then shall we meet again. In the mean space, Tom Stukeley lives. Lusty Tom Stukeley, graced by the greatest king of Christendom.
Enter one of the king's men, Nuncio.
The governor of Cadiz, Hernandez, stays to cry you mercy and to take his leave.
There, let him stay. I leave him to himself. I love him not, nor malice one so mean.
Enter Valdez Marshal. Marshal?
Sorry, this bit escapes my highlighting. The king, Don Stukeley, prays to speak with you, but even a word. He will not stay you long.
I shall attend his highness by and by.
And exeunt Valdez.
For old acquaintance and for country's sake, Vernon and master, let me banquet you. It shall be no disgrace to feast with me, whom the king useth with so great respect.
Pardon, sir, I must go see my ship, whose owner shall be thankful for your favour.
What says Master Vernon?
I some other time may trouble you, although it be not now.
As your occasions shall induce you, sir.
And exit Stukeley.
Good master, see if anything of mine may from the ship be safely brought ashore, and I will see your pains considered.
I do not doubt but all your stuff is safe. The hatches are as close as any chest. Nothing takes hurt but what is in the hold, because the keel is split upon the sands. I'll send your trunks ashore, and then provide to seek our drowned men, and to bury them.
Exit Shipmaster.
Not all the drowned, but those are drowned and dead. For I am drowned in my conceit alive. Some sin of mine hath so offended heaven that heaven still sends offense unto mine eye. What should I think of Stukeley or myself? Either was he created for my scourge, or I was born the foil to his fair haps. Or in our birth, our stars were retrograde. In Ireland, he braved his governor. In Spain, he is companion to the king. His fortunes mounts, and mine stoops to the ground. He is the vine, I is the colewort grow. I live in every air, but where he breathes, his eyes is as the Gorgon's head to me, and doth transform my senses into stone. Some hold Spain's climate to be very hot. I feel my blood to be congealed to ice in Spain. The leopard lives not near the elephant, nor I near Stukeley. Spain, farewell to thee, or else either arrange this universe about, or I will be where Stukeley hath no being.
Exit Vernon, I'm sure, for the last time. Stukeley's wife is dead. The Shipmaster, strangely enough, is the person who tells this information to him. You know, not somebody who is more plausibly knowing stuff. I like the Shipmaster's kicker actually on their exit. You know, it's just, oh, your stuff's fine. You know, I'll sort your stuff out, and then I'll bury all the dead people. I'll do that after I've got your stuff. Okay, is that you know? There's something really quite nicely sarky about that, and then Vernon gets to complain again. I mean, I do feel for Vernon a bit, especially considering how much of a shit Stukeley kind of is here. Lynn.
I feel sad for Vernon. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's like painfully boring, and that's why Nell Curtis threw him over. But I mean, he's a decent kind of guy, and he cared about Nell Curtis. And here's Stukeley being so callous about it, just kind of rubbing salt in Vernon's wounds. Like, this woman you were in love with is dead. Oh, bummer. Oh well.
Yeah.
But we'll all meet again in heaven. It's okay. Arm punches.
Yeah, and especially, there's a nice irony to all the stuff that Stukeley's saying as well. I'm alive. I'm full of beans. I'm graced by the greatest king in Christendom. And of course, we just know that he kind of isn't. So there's a sort of pride before a fall element here that I quite like too. Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, also, it's not like Vernon hasn't gone out of his way to avoid him. I mean, if he's being a bit whiny, you can kind of understand why. He's been singularly unlucky with his coincidences here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Vernon, just think if he just stayed at home and put his foot down and married Nell, he would, everything would be so much better. He would have money. He would probably have a nice life. He wouldn't constantly be meeting Stukeley.
To be fair, he'd probably still be mourning for Nell, but
well,
who knows?
Yeah, well, we don't know that they would have. Their deaths are not inevitable. Maybe in this parallel universe, everything's much better. Lois.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch that Stukeley invites them both to dinner, and they both very politely say they have prior engagements, and I mean, they clearly don't want to be in the same room with him, and I don't know whether he's aware of that or not. I mean, he's quite polite about it, but I mean, this surely is one of these understated scenes.
Yes, there's a certain amount of saying, yes, I'm terribly sorry. I'm just I've got important plans tonight. I'm cutting my toenails. I need to buy a bag of sugar. Alan.
I must admit I'm thinking that Stukeley's invitation to dinner did not actually say that he was going to be paying for it.
Well, yes.
And given his previous character traits, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah. Well, in theory, he's just been handed a whacking great bonus from the king.
That's different.
Yeah. So he's not short of cash at the moment, I'm sure. Anyway, Helen.
Yeah, it's the line that struck me was, "And where's the part he left his son-in-law?"
Yeah.
I mean, his reaction to being told his wife's dead is to say. His wife and her father are dead, is to say, why didn't the old man leave me something?
Yeah, because the entire family has been wiped out.
Yeah.
They're all dead. and he just goes, anything from the will coming my way?
Yeah, and they say that her father wasn't that wealthy either when he died, probably because he'd been helping his daughter out since Stukeley left her without a penny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that cheerful note, let's go on and get closer to his death. So, scene 18. Enter Stukeley, Valdez, Stukeley's page, and one bearing bags sealed.
How many ducats did the king assign?
5,000.
Are they all within these bags?
Well near.
How near?
Perhaps some 20 want.
The bags are set on the table.
Why should there want a marmody, a mite? Doth the king know that any ducats lacks?
He doth, and saw the bags would hold more, and sealed them with his signet, as you see.
Valdez, return them. I will have none of them. And tell thy master, the great king of Spain, I honor him, but scorn his nigger dice.
And cast the bags on the ground.
And spurn a Bridget bounty with my foot. A base 20 from 5,000 ducats? I'll give 5,000 ducats to my boy. If I had promised Philip all the world or any kingdom, England sole except, I would have perished or performed my word, and not reserved one cottage to myself, nor so much ground as would have made my grave. Foutre for ducats, if he take the tithe. Tell him I'll do his business at Rome upon my proper cost. But for his crowns, since they come curtailed, carry them away. Come, boy, to horse, away. Spaniard, farewell.
Stay, sir, I pray, till I move the king.
Thou movest the mountain sooner than my mind.
And exit Stukeley and his page.
What a high spirit hath this Englishman. He tunes his speeches to a kingly key, conquers the world, and casts it at his heels.
Enter Philip and his lords.
Here comes the king.
Now, is Stukeley gone?
Gone, and will do your business in Rome, though he refused the ducats you assigned.
How so?
Because that 20 ducats want.
Amongst 5,000 may not 20 lack.
No, he supposeth you repent your gift if you abridge your bounty, but I might.
Not for the world shall Stukeley go without. Go add 1,000 ducats more to these, and post and pray him not to be displeased. Tell him I did it but to try his mind, which I commend above my treasury. If England have but 50,000 such, the power of Spain their coast shall touch. Come, lords, to horse to Seville lies our way. Valdez, I charge you to eschew delay.
And they exit. Slightly confused about the nature of Philip here. From the previous scene, I would have thought Philip would have gone, "Oh, we're quids in, excellent." And again, we have this element of Stukeley is he's not actually interested in money. You know, he will spend money like water, but and run up debts. But honor is more important than money. This lacks 20 ducats. Bah, pish tush. Stuff. Lynn.
So I haven't listened to the Alcazar recording, so I'm not familiar with that story. But my interpretation here would be that Philip is again performing. He's pretending to say, "Oh, it was so noble." But what he doesn't want is for that military expedition to be underfunded and to fail because Stukeley runs out of money. That's my guess.
I'm not sure that's part of the game plan, but we shall see. Lois, then Briony.
Yeah, as far as I can see, Stukeley is just going to the Pope, isn't he, to get his blessing on this rather dubious enterprise. And it's just a matter of money for his travel, for his expenses in Rome and so on. And just for the honor of Spain, he should look splendid. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they discovered that all these bags had stones in them or something instead of gold. But he does appear to, he's got on the one hand his own prestige to think of, I suppose, and insofar as it's reflected in Stukeley. But he couldn't care less about Stukeley anyway. It's a funny situation.
Briony.
Yeah, I just thought it was a bit lame the way he's just like, "Oh, tell him I was testing him." That old chestnut. It's just a test. You passed it. Well done. Here's the money.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing people say in plays, isn't it? Yeah, that'll do. Rachael.
No, just how much is a ducat? If somebody could post it in the chat, if it doesn't, if it takes up too much space for, like, not in the recording. I don't know.
Anyone know off the top of the exchange rate of a ducat for shall we say a pound in
1578.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I used to know this.
Let us assume it is not an insubstantial amount of money in relative terms.
And to the theater, it cost you a penny.
Yeah.
So
A ducat is a gold coin, right? So even a very tiny gold coin has got to be worth a lot of silver or copper, and 5,000 of them, that's just got to be a lot of money. Like a lot.
I mean, he's seriously not. He's definitely not going staying at a Premier Inn on the way to Rome. I suspect he's going 5-star all the way. Anyway, we will move on to scene 19 and enter Sebastian. I don't think we've met Sebastian yet in this play. Anyway, we also meet Antonio and the Cardinal and Botello, etc.
The great and honored promise thou return'st us from our brave kinsman, Philip, King of Spain. My dear Botello adds a second life unto the action that we have in hand. The joyful breath that issues from thy lips comes like a lusty gale to stuff our sails, curling the smooth brows of the Aric deep. Oh, let me hear thy tongue sound once again the cheerful promise of our new supplies.
Why, thus imperial Spain bid me return unto the great puissant Portingal 10,000 foot of gallant Spanish blood, men born in honor and exploits in war, and not one Indian or base bastard more. 50 his galleys of the proudest vessels that to this day yet ever bear an oar, to meet you at the Port de San Maria, the 4th of June.
The 4th of June at Port de Santa Maria, 10,000 foot and 50 of his galleys, by land and sea and at a certain time. Oh, what a gallant harmony is here! Methinks that I could stand and still repeat them a month together. They so please my soul. Ha, Antonio! Oh, what an army's here! I tell thee, cousin, never Christian king came with so proud a power to Africa.
And yet the greatness of your royal spirit makes all this nothing. So your glory shines above the power of Spain and Portugal.
Cousin Antonio, to pay Botello back the interest of his Spanish embassy, as you have taken muster of our powers, report the number, what our army is.
Unto the number of 10,000 Spaniards in the king's army, add to this, Botello, 3,000 mercenary Spanish Moors, of voluntary valiant Portugals, 3,000 threescore special men of arms, the garrison of Tangier and light horsemen, 5,400, 5,000 Germans and Italians, my power, 3,000, and the Duke of Eros doubles my number, if not fully more, besides the power we do expect from Rome, 37,000. We are now complete.
Our army joined with that Mohammed brings, his barbarians and his mountain Moors, brought from the deserts of burnt Africa, his valiant Turks trained up in spoil of war, his soldiers of Morocco and of Cyrus, to 50,000 as his promise is. Ha, brave Antonio, there will be a power to affright the very walls of Fez, and make stout Afrique tremble at the sight, where we shall brave her on the sunburned plains, and with our cannons crush her wanton head. Oh my, Antonio, how I long to see how Spanish blood and Turkish will agree.
How shall it please your sacred majesty to appoint the several charges of this war?
Cousin Antonio, in this heat of war for the safety of our royal kingdom, let us yet speak of things concern our peace, although but brief. First, our dearest cousin, for your princely self, your right unto the crown of Portugal, as first and nearest of our royal blood, that, should we fail, the next in our succession, 'tis you and yours to sit upon our throne, which is our pleasure to be published.
Long may my liege and sovereign Lord Sebastian sit on the royal throne of Portugal.
We thank you, princely cousin. Our dear and reverend Uncle Cardinal, unto ourself commit our wars in Africa. For the great trust we repose in you, we do bequeath our kingdom's government as one whose wise and nobility deserves the great protection of our realm.
The most unworthy of that royal place, whose many years and imbecility are but too weak to underprop the burthen. But may the remnant of my age be spent to Portugal's relief and your content.
Now, Antony, unto our several charges. Yourself will share the fortunes in these wars. We do commit a garrison of 10 years unto the leading of Alvarez Perez, our voluntary Portugals, to Lodovico Cesar, the mercenary Spaniards to Alonso, Merenices, Lieutenant General of our forces, Tenara for the German colonel, and now set forward, let our ensigns fly, either victorious or if conquered, die.
And they exit. So, Sebastian, I think, can be defined primarily as the with one word. Ha! Seems to say that quite a lot, and seems to sum up the adventuring spirit of Sebastian. Very keen on war, very keen on this war, a war that nobody's really quite sure why he was so keen on. But he's really keen on it. He's going to go out and do some stuff. Huzzah. Sort of that's very much I'm seeing him at the moment. So yeah, we he's really keen on this, and he's got lots of people saying, yeah, it's going to be great. Rachael.
No, just this goes for Stukeley too, even though his is a kind of a spoiler. But if anybody else besides him in this play goes, I don't think I'm going to mourn them much either, especially after some of the racism we had in this last little bit.
Other thoughts in the room about Sebastian's plans? What the Portuguese are going to be getting up to here? Alan.
I mean, we had a lot of mention of various places and countries, but I didn't actually detect that much explicit racism compared with many of the pieces that we've read.
Lois.
Yeah, well, what Rachel's thinking of is that bit about the army that's not going to have any base Indians and Moors in it, I think. But apart from that, that last speech is full of names. I mean, it's a real tongue twister. I think what the scene's doing partly, since presumably the audience would all know that Sebastian. There were all these rumors about Sebastian still being alive after the Battle of Alcazar. It's quite important that he does appoint a succession. What I can't make out is he seems to ask one person to sit on the throne and the other one to take charge of the government.
There are some confusing aspects of what's going on there. I mean, one of the important things I think structurally that this scene is trying to do is not only talking about succession, but also just saying, look, we've got all these people coming from here, there, and everywhere. It's going to be lots of armies. There's going to be all sorts of people from all over. It's going to be great. It's going to be great because coordinating lots of different armies from different places is never a disaster, ever. There's no logistical issues that will get in anybody's way. Lynn.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the point of this scene is dramatic irony. What you just said, Rob, about it gives the audience a sense of what a sort of task overwhelming task of organization and coordination this battle is going to be. And we already know that Philip intends to betray Sebastian. So here's Sebastian being supremely confident and very manly, thigh slapping, as somebody said in the chat, so that the audience can be like, oh yeah, you think this is going to be fun. It's not going to work out the way you think it is. But I do feel like maybe we get that about a third of the way into the scene, and maybe we don't need to hammer that home quite so much. If we're thinking about places to cut, this scene seemed to drag on a little bit to me.
All sorts of interesting structural questions are going to turn up as we go. Let us go to another interesting structural question as we go to scene 20, where we have the entrance of the chorus. That chorus that we've been enjoying so much in the play so far.
Thus far, through patience of your gentle ears, hath Stukeley's life in comic history been new revived that long ago lay racked in dust of Afric with his body there. Thus far, upon the steps of high promotion, his happy stars advanced him. Now, at highest, as clearest summer days have darkest nights, and everything must finish, so in him his state declining draws unto an end. For by the Pope created, as you've heard, Marquis of Ireland, with that new honour embarked and victualled, think him on the sea, and that the time Sebastian had set down to meet with Philip's promised aid is past. Toward Afric he, toward Ireland the other, are both addressed upon the boisterous waves. But meeting what strange accident befell, how he was altered from his first intent, and be deluded by the hope he had, to be ascribed by the Castile king, regard this show, and plainly see the thing.
So, in dumb show, enter at one door Philip, King of Spain, Alva, and soldiers. They take their stand. Then enter another way, Sebastian, Don Antonio, Avero, with drums and ensigns. They likewise take their stand. After some pause, Antonio is sent forth to Philip, who, with obeisance done, approaching, away again, very disdainfully. And as the Spanish soldiers are about to follow Antonio, Philip, with his drawn sword, stops them, and so departs. Whereat Sebastian makes show of great displeasure. In your own time, show of great displeasure. Excellent. But whispering with his lords, each encouraging other as they are about to depart. Enter Stukeley and his Italian band, who, keeping aloof, Sebastian and Antonio to him, with whom Stukeley draw near toward the king, and having a while conferred, at last retires to his soldiers, to whom he makes a show of persuading them to join with the Portuguese. At first they seem to mislike, but at last they yield, and so both armies meeting embrace, when with a sudden thunderclap, hang on. The sky is on fire, and the blazing star appears, and which they, prognosticating to be fortunate, departed very joyful.
So far was Philip, as you have beheld, from lending aid unto the Portuguese, is not content to undergo the blot of breach of promise, but with naked sword of unavoided justice threatens such, as should but offer to depart the land, whereby the prince, though very much disturbed, yet not dismayed, so haughty was his mind, resolveth still to prosecute his journey. And whilst they are debating on the cause, Stukeley by weather is driven into them, who, being known what countryman he was, what ships he had, and what Italian bands, and whereto he was bound, the offence thereof, the great dishonour and impiety laid open by Sebastian, straight recants, and moves his soldiers, which with much ado at last are won to make for Barbary. No sooner was this fellowship contrived, and they had joined their armies both in one, that heaven, displeased with their rash enterprise, sent such a fatal comet in the air, which they, misconstruing, shone successfully, do haste the faster, furrowing through the deep. And now suppose, but woe the wretched hour, and woe that damned Mahomet, by whose guile this tender and unskilled, but valiant king was thus allured unto a timeless death, that in Tyrol, a town in Barbary, they all are landed, and not far from thence do meet that straggling fugitive the Moor, with some small forces. What doth then ensue we may discourse, but Christendom shall rue.
And exit chorus. Packs an awful lot in there. A lot of stuff that isn't really clear or slightly different to what we had earlier. I don't recall precisely whether Stukeley's mission to Rome and the plan that he had there quite matched what he was actually trying to do. I don't know whether they explicated that within the play very well or at all, or whether I just missed that because he's going there to raise an army for one thing. He's not doing it for the other thing. He only is involved in this expedition by accident because he turns up on the shores. He's in theory supposed to be invading Ireland, so but I don't think that cropped up in this play so far. So something weird's going on in this comic history. Lois, then Alan.
Yeah, that's what puzzles me. I don't think we've ever seen him named Marquis of Ireland. I mean, that's what the chorus says, that we all know that he's Marquis of Ireland. No, we don't. I mean, something may have dropped out. I don't know. Maybe whoever wrote the chorus hadn't read the previous scene. I know that Tiffany Stern thinks that chorus speeches were often written out separately, and there might have been other chorus speeches, in other words, that didn't get included with the script. That's the only other way I can explain some of the discontinuities here. I also find it interesting that we get the reference to the blazing star, not a blazing star. That's because the company had a blazing star in its props department, and they were trotting it out on all possible occasions.
And for those who remember doing Alcazar, there is a great show, dumb shows of blazing stars and fireworks, and it's all very complicated. We did do a video just looking at Act 5 of Alcazar many, many moons ago, which links hopefully will appear at the end of this video in the show notes. I'll go to Alan, then Dan, then Briony.
To a certain extent, that chorus speech is actually a précis of the useful bits out of Alcazar. And I just wonder whether it was, well, yes, you saw this here last week or last month. So we'll just remind you of the salient points.
Yeah, well, there is an interesting question about whether it's how much it's in conversation with Alcazar. And yeah, I mean, we basically have the setup to Act 5 of Alcazar in that sense. We've skipped over a lot of the politics and the complications of the first 4 acts of Alcazar because, of course, this play isn't directly interested in that. So yeah, I mean, the dumb show is quite nice. There's some lovely descriptions. I love all the stuff about, he didn't like that. Oh no, he did, all of those disdainfully. I'm not really with you. Go by yourself if you want. Anyway, sorry, Dan, then Briony.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to have this dumb show here and so well written out and reminding me once again of Alcazar, because this is the kind of thing that. And you see this also in Spanish tragedy, where you would see these really lengthy dumb shows written out, and unfortunately they're not written out in so many other plays. I'll just say dumb show there. I think that we're fortunate to have this, and I think it is what Lois is saying, suggesting that possibly that this was not this doesn't always make it into the texts, and luckily we do have it, just like the Irish scene that we'll see later on today.
Yes, well, we probably won't read.
Oh, we won't?
No, we've already read it, just not in Irish, if that makes sense.
Oh, such a bonus! The reason why I think a lot of the reason why this play is famous.
I think many of us have enough to apologise to the Irish people for reading the alternative Irish scene in the phonetics. Yeah. I think would just be cruel.
Well, it's worth noting then that that there is this. An alternate scene that's inserted into the text of the same scene of scene 7 in Irish, that for whatever reason crept into it, just like this dumb show crept into it and this chorus crept in.
Briony.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on how weird it is structurally to suddenly insert a chorus at this late stage in a play, when usually it's something that either a play has or it hasn't, and it just feels very strange and a bit disjointed.
It's not the first time we've had a late onset chorus, but yes, the point does still stand there. And yeah, just tonally, we're a long way from London. For those who are interested in the Irish scene, we covered it in the first session of this, the first video. We did look at that, but we didn't read the alternative version. One day, maybe we will. Anyway, we need to move on to there are no acts. Scene 21, where we're going to get some additional characters we've not met before. Enter Muly Hemet with Calipolis drawn in their chariot, with them a messenger from Sebastian.
Go. Let 10,000 of our guards be sent to entertain the great Sebastian and welcome Christian to the King of Fez. And tell the Portingal, thy royal master, that Afric makes obeisance to his feet and stoops her proud head lower than his knee. Tell him mine eyes are thirsty for his presence.
We'll return to tell your highness pleasure.
Do so. Begone.
And a messenger exits at this point.
And let our chariot be drawn softly forward, where I and my Calipolis will sit to grace the entrance of the great Portingale. Now, fair Calipolis, rouse thy proud beauty and strike their eyes with verdure of thyself.
He leaps from his chariot. Enter Sebastian at the sound of trumpets. We also have the entrance of Antonio and Stukeley.
Is that still me?
Yep.
Dismount thee, Muly, from thy chariot wheels to entertain the mighty Christian king. Welcome, Sebastian, king of Portingale.
Thanks to the mighty and imperial Fez. Why thus alights the mighty emperor?
That I will do, great Portingal, the grace to set thee by Calipolis, my queen.
Let mighty Muly's self supply that place and give me leave to attend upon your love.
Mount thee, Sebastian. Muly doth command. It is my pleasure. I will have it so. Mount thee, brave lord, and sit thee on her side, and say, Sebastian, that the son of Phoebus upon his father's fiery burnished car ne'er sat so glorious as the Portingale. Jove would exchange his sceptre for thy seat, and would abandon Juno's godlike bed, might he enjoy my fair Calipolis. Welcome, Sebastian, love to Africa.
All welcome that Calipolis can give to the renowned mighty Portuguese. Here sit, sweet prince, and rest thee after toil. I'll wipe thy brows with leaves more sweet and soft than is the down of Cytherea's fans. I'll fan thy face with the delicious plumes of that sweet wonder of Arabia. With precious waters I'll refresh thy curls, whose very savor shall make panthers wild, and lively smell of those delicious sweets. And with such glorious liquors please thy taste, as Helen's goblet never did contain, nor never graced the banquet of the gods.
Then speak the comfort of great Muly's life. Her teeth more white than Caucasus frosty clots, where she unlocks the portals of her lips. Beauty a phoenix burneth in her eye, which there still liveth, as it still doth die.
Why, here's a gallant, here's a king indeed. He speaks all Mars. Tut, let me follow such a lad as this. This is pure fire. Every look he casts flasheth like lightning. There's metal in this boy. He brings a breath that sets our sails on fire. Why, now I see we shall have cuffs indeed.
Now, afore God, he is a gallant prince.
What princes be these in your company?
That is our cousin, Prince Antonio. The other, Stukeley, the brave Irish Marquis.
Noble Antonio and renowned Marquis, 10,000 welcomes into Africa.
Thanks to great Muly.
To your mightiness.
Next now, the neighing of our warlike horse shall shake the palace of commanding Jove. Our roaring cannons tear the highest clouds and fright the sun out of his wonted course. Afric, I'll dye thy tawny sands in blood and set a purple on thy sunburnt face. This is the day thy terror first began, before great Muly and Sebastian. Drive on, and I will lackey by thy side. These Christian lords, I trust, will take no scorn when Muly Hemet bears them company. Away!
So yes, the chariot that's ensconced at the Rose getting another outing here, and all sorts of things that feel very borrowed from Alcazar again, and yeah, but in a sort of precede form, and some weird dialogue, some very odd stuff going on. Interesting stuff. Briony, thoughts?
It confused me for a brief moment, but I really enjoyed the way that Muly kept referring to himself in the third person. it paints something about what kind of a person he is that I liked.
Yeah, and the way he's talking about Calipolis, there's something really weird there, and the presentation, it's all very flamboyant and exoticized in a way that's very odd. Lois, then Lynn, then Sarah.
Yeah, this does make me wonder about the relation to Alcazar, because I think the most famous line in Alcazar, which in fact is a misquotation of it, is "Feed and be fat, my fair Calipolis." And it comes in the scene where they're both in the desert and she's hungry, and he goes off and comes back with a lion's heart on his dagger and offers it to her. And that line got quoted. I mean, he doesn't exactly say that, but that's what is quoted in a couple of other plays, became a kind of famous catchphrase. So, I mean, this is certainly one thing in the play everybody would have known, is the importance of Calipolis and Muly Mahomet's relation to her.
Lynn.
Yeah, the way that she's exoticized and eroticized, the way there's this very sensual language about how she's going to welcome this guy who is not her husband. It's like it's all very foreplay-y, but she's married to someone else. I mean, I don't know. Thoughts about that anymore.
Yeah, and then Stukeley's response, which is, he is a gallant. He speaks all Mars, and I'm sort of going, is he? Is he actually?
More like Venus.
Wasn't quite where I was going with his dialogue, but never mind. Sarah.
Yeah, I was pretty much going to say what Lynn just said, actually. And I found it quite uncomfortable, actually, this kind of... It seemed to me that there was this massive power play going on. Like, you sit next to her. No, you sit next to her. No, you sit next to her. I can sit next to her anytime I like, and just, like, lech all over her. Yeah, it was like the language suddenly became really ostentatiously fruity, and I assume, based on what I've seen of this play so far, I assume that's kind of conscious decision on the part of the playwright, because they really seem to know their business. But it just did make me go a bit, ew.
Yeah, and it's with this flamboyant display and the chariot, and we can probably infer other things going on here, that this is doing a very different business of work that the first third of the play was sort of doing, and other third of the play was doing. And anyway, Briony.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that we have another cardboard cutout woman who is very much talked about, but has yet to say anything herself. And when she does, I'd be surprised if it paints a round picture of who she is, because they haven't really done that with any of the women thus far.
Okay, Rachael, and then we will move on.
Yeah, just kind of what other people were saying about that exotified cuckold joke. There was some website that I think Steve sent me that's like the early modern Near East, And I think there was some traveler that said that some leader offered one of his concubines to him. So maybe this is playing on some, fabricated history that some guy from a travel journal brought back, telling about. I'll have to figure it out. I'll send it in the little.
Oh yeah, no, it is an account from about the time, an artificer who went with music boxes or something similar to the Turkish court, and was indeed given access to the harem, and was offered, you can stay here and have a pick of the wives and live here, and he decided to go back home. Whether any of it was true or not, of course, he was the one telling the story, so maybe it was possibly elaborated upon. But yes, it is that kind. There are accounts of that kind of exoticism going on, so it's very much in the air. Okay, we need to move on to scene 22, and we're going to see where we're moving towards some war, so maybe we'll enjoy ourselves more. Scene 22, 2 trumpets sound at either end. Enter Muly, Hemet, and Antonio.
Second thy son, whatever thou be beast that callest, and with thy proud importance greet our ears.
What African or warlike Portingal comes forth to answer?
Muly, Hemet, I.
Antonio.
The same proud Moor, that proud Portugal.
Where is Sebastian? He comes not forth himself to answer me.
And enter Sebastian, Mahomet, and the train.
Here, Muly Muhammad. Here, stout African, what wouldst thou, Hemet, with the Portuguese? Where's Abdelmelec, thy proud, haughty brother?
And at the naming of him, enter Abdelmelec and his train.
Here, brave Sebastian, King of Portingal.
Oh, art thou there? Thyself in presence then? What wouldst thou beg? Proud Abdelmelec, speak.
Beg? 'Tis a word I never heard before, yet understand I what thou meanest thereby. There's not a child of manly Zarik's line, but scorns to beg of Mahomet himself. We shall lead fortune with us, bound about, and sell her bounty as we do our slaves. We mount her back and manage her for war, as we do use to serve barbarian horse, and check her with the snaffle and the reins. We bend her swelling crest, and stop and turn as it best likes us, haughty Portingales.
We'll spur your jennet, lusty African, with our pistols we'll prick her pampered sides, until with yarking she do break her girths, and fling her gallant rider in the field, and say proud Moor that so said Portingal.
Thy words do sound of honour, Christian king, which makes me therefore pity thee more, and sorrow that thy valour should be sunk in such a vasty unknown sea of arms, where thy old courage cannot bear that sail that thy proud haughty spirit would gladly have. Therefore, Sebastian, cast aside these arms that thou unjustly bears against thy friend, and leave that traitor that but trains thee on unto the jaws of thy destruction.
Brave young Sebastian, King of Portingal, and Don Antonio, hear me, gallant lords. Muly Muhammad, but you are in presence, would think himself damned everlastingly but to hold rack with so base a slave, whose coward melting soul for very fear comes frightened up and down within his bosom, and fain would find a message from his breast, so daunted with the terror of our arms that he is mad. His soldiers will not fly, that with some colour he might turn his back. Seest thou the power of Africs in my hand, like furious lightning in the hand of Jove, to dash thy pride, and like a raging storm to tear those Turkish flags that spread their silks upon the strands of peaceful Africa. and quakest not, slave, with terror of the same?
Ere but my brother's bastard and a slave that should have kneeled at Abdelmelec's feet send these proud threats from his audacious lips.
Down, dog, and crouch before the feet of great Morocco and of mighty Fez. But why vouchsafe language to this slave? Hear me, Sebastian, thou brave Portuguese. I, Muly Hemet, king of mighty Sus, whose country's bounds and limits do extend from mighty Atlas over all those lands that stretch themselves to the Atlantic Sea, and look upon Canary's wealthy isles, and on the west to Gibraltar's straits, those fruitful forelands and the famous towns, assure Sebastian, king of Portugal, most glorious and triumphant victory.
Hear me, Sebastian. Hear me, youthful king, and Abdelmelec will receive thee yet, and clip thee in the arms of gentle peace. Forsake this tyrant, and join hands with me, and at thy pleasure quietly possess the towns thou holdest in Afric at this day. Agener, Zahanra, Ceuta, Penon, Melilla, which Muly Mahomet will dispossess thee of, if by thy means he should obtain the day.
Say, Abdelmelec, tell me, wilt thou yet dismiss thy power, break these rebellious arms which now thou bearest gainst the king of Fez and great Sebastian, king of Portugal, yet of Mahomet will obtain thy life?
Look on the power that Abdelmelec brings of brave resolved Turks and valiant Moors, approved Alarcus, puissant Argolettes, as numberless as be these Afric sands, and turn thee then, and leave thy petty power, the succor failing you expect from Spain, and bow thy knees for mercy Portugal.
Our very slaves are Negroes, muleteers, able to give you battle in the field. Then think of those that you must cope withal, the Portingal and his approved power, Muly Mahomet and his valiant Moors, the Irish Marquis Stukeley and his troops of warlike Germans and Italians, Alvarez, Caesar, Meneses and Avero. Proud Abdelmelec, kneel and beg for grace.
Then, proud Sebastian, I deny all means.
Therefore, Mahomet and Sebastian, farewell.
So we've got the come and have a go if you think you're hard enough scene out of the way there. Yeah, quite a lengthy scene to basically do that. Just setting up the battle lines, making sure we know who's who. Introducing... Have we met Abdelmelec before? I don't think we have. So yeah, making sure we know who all the principals in the fight to come are. Lynn.
Yeah, who is Abdelmelec? He's the person that Muly Mahomet is fighting?
Yes.
Right.
And
So
that's the power struggle that the Portuguese have stepped into.
And they're like brothers or half brothers?
They are related on some level. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Good enough.
Yeah. Lois.
Yeah, I can't remember much of the detail, but I think it is made clear that Muly Mahomet is the bastard son of somebody who's claiming the throne, I think, from Abdelmelec, who I think in the Battle of Alcazar also seemed to be the most sensible of this rather disgusting lot. And he seems the most sensible one here, too. He's trying to calm the whole thing down and get Sebastian out of here before he's killed, although he has reasons for doing this, of course.
Mm. So I'm looking at the family tree, trying to figure out how they're precisely related, but I can't quite see it at the moment. Yes, anyway. Yeah, the battle lines are drawn. There are some people, they're fighting each other. We're only really here for Stukeley. Do we really care why anyone's doing anything? Does it matter? Any additional
Yeah.
thoughts?
Struck me as a fairly cuttable scene, really.
It does go on a long time for what it's doing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is probably here because we have the exotic costumes that we pulled out of the stock to like, woo, parading around in whatever the early modern conception of what people from that part of the world wore. So, it's a. But of course, I think that because I'm an old costume designer, so it's like, oh, this scene's all about the costumes.
Yeah,
And the chariot.
Yeah, the chariot. That was what the previous scene was about. Yeah.
Anyway, we're nearly at the end. The end is coming. Scene 23. There are some excursions and day trips. Enter Sebastian, Antonio, Avero, and Stukeley in council together.
Advise us, Lord, as if we this present night shall pass the river of Mezagar here, upon whose sandy banks our tents are pitched, or stay the morning fresh approaching sun.
In my opinion, let us not remove. The night is dark, the river passing deep, and we ourselves and all my troops, my lord, exceeding weary with the last day's march.
My lord Avero counsels well, methinks.
What's your opinion, Marquess of Ireland?
My lord, might I persuade, neither tonight nor in the morning should ye cross the river. Our men are weak, the enemy is strong. Our men are feeble, they in perfect health. Besides, his better discipline, I judge, to let them seek us here than we them there, considering what advantage may be had against them that first attempt to pass the river. Again, on this side, whatsoever fall, we have Larassa and Morocco both strong towns of succor to retire unto.
Retire unto? Talk Stukeley of retreat? Are you invested with a marquis name, graced with the title of a fiery spirit, renowned, and talkest so of fortitude? And lurks there in your breast so mean a thought? Can there issue from your lips a term so base and beggarly as that of flight? I rather thought that Stukeley would have said, we bait here, and are not swift enough in seeking fit time to begin the fight.
Conceit me not, Sebastian, at the worst. You crave my counsel, and in that respect I speak my conscience. If you like it not, condemn me not, therefore, of cowardice, for what I said was, as a faithful friend, careful we should embrace the safest course. But as I am Tom Stukeley and a captain, never known yet to stand in fear of death, rise when you will. His foot that is the foremost, his sword that's soonest drawn, my foot and sword shall be as forward and as quickly drawn. Nay, do but follow, and I'll lead the way. I'll be the first shall wade up to the chin or pass Mizaga's channel, and the first shall give assault unto the enemy. So little do I fear the extremest brunt of hardest fortune that attends on war.
And enter Muly.
To arms, brave king! To arms, courageous lords! Bright-crested victory doth waft us on, and all advantages that may be had offer to fill our hands with wished spoil, and cheer our hearts with endless happiness. False Abdelmelec mortally is sick, for fear, I think, that we shall vanquish him. His soldiers mutinize, and his best friends begin to waver and mistrust the cause, of which 3,000 of his stout Alarcs, men very expert with the shield and lance, this night are fled to us, who likewise tell of many thousands more that will revolt. Were we but ordered once within the field, I dare assure ye had not crossed the river, as now the daybreak calls us to our labour, so that there might be expeditious means for such as do affect us to depart. Half Abdelmelec's army would forsake him.
No longer, great Mohammed, will we linger. We give direction by our pioneers so soon as any beams of light appeared within the east to settle to their work and make our passage smoother through the ford. And lest they loiter, we ourselves in person will overlook them that by 10 o'clock within yonder plain adjacent to Alcazar, the lot of happy fortune may be cast. Come, lords, and each unto his several charges.
Bravely resolved. Myself will follow you. And so it happened that Mohammed's speed, I reck not who or Turk or Christian bleed.
And they exit. What should we do, Sebastian, Stukeley? Well, I think we should possibly get out of here. Well, I didn't expect that from you. Well, if you want me to fight, then as I am, Tom Stukeley and a captain. Yeah. Everybody cheer. I will commit suicide on your behalf, sir. Because that's the honourable thing to do, even though we're clearly going to lose.
Yeah.
And Muly Mohammed comes in and says, "Oh, it's all right. The enemy's one of the major enemies. He's not well. He's not well. Of course, what none of them know is that they're going to prop him up in a chair and carry him around, his dead body around, and the opponent's armies will continue to fight regardless." Yeah. Another scene that felt slightly too long for its for what it was actually doing. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm not feeling harmony.
But that was kind of that was another Stukeley moment where he has he for once in his life says, okay, we've got the resources to do this safely. We've got places we can hole up when we need to sort of regroup, and they're like, that doesn't sound very brave to me. Double dog dare ya. He's like, oh, okay, you're
right. Helen, then Sarah, then Rachael.
Yeah, I was going to say more or less the same, that Stukeley, it's about honor, and Stukeley is giving sound military advice, which had it been followed, they might have done better. But then you say, this is a question of honor. So they say, all right, let's lose the battle, so long as we keep our honor.
Sarah.
This play comes after Alcazar, I assume.
Yes.
Because it feels like we've just wandered into a different play. And Stukeley's been about honor all the way through, but I don't know. It's like it's almost like the shadow of the other play is kind of overhanging this one so much that we seem to have not lost the plot exactly, but we've lost the character.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Rachael, then Lois. No, Lois.
Oh, yeah, I think the problem is Alcazar. I mean, the play gets to a certain point, and then they start bringing in all the same props from Alcazar. They feel, I think they've got to get Muly Mohammed in. I mean, it was an absolutely famous role, and his last lines in this, as long as I'm ahead, I don't care who dies, on which side, that's just the archetypal swaggering villain. And he really was the Moor. I mean, he's referred to that way in Poetaster, where there are a couple of boys who say they'll do the Moor, and one of them gets on the shoulders of someone else and puts a sort of fake turban on his head, and then they stalk around, because apparently Alain was quite tall as well, and it was a famous part, and I think it suddenly starts sort of taking over the play. They just can't do the rest of this play without him, and it's kind of messing everything up.
And the big problem with Alcazar is that he's a really complicated setup for the battle, and it feels like this play is obliged to sort of explain some of it, whereas in fact it might be easier if they just had him just stumbling in and not knowing anything and just going, oh, all right, and that might fit tonally as well better if they focused more on him going to invade Ireland and then stumbling into Alcazar. But in fact, that whole thing gets sidelined and ends up so mangled that you don't really know what he's doing in Rome or why he's got all these people. It's not properly explained. So yeah, something's gone a bit weird. But anyway, we have more play to go, and of course we have lots of material. So there's always adjustments that can be made. Having too much material is not inherently a problem. Having too little is. Scene 24, I think we'll run it into scene 25. Trumpets sounding the battle. Enter Abdelmelec and Sebastian fighting. After them again, Muly Mahomet and Muly Hemet. Then Antonio with some other passing away. Then they retire back, and Abdelmelec alone in the battle.
Fetch me one drop of water, any man, and I will give him Tanir's wealthy town. The sands of Africa are so parching hot that when our blood doth light upon the earth, the drops do seethe like cauldrons as they stand, till made like ink it cleave unto the hoof of our fierce jennets, which sunk underneath us, overcome with heat. Some water, how?
Enter soldier running in haste.
My lord, you have been very lately sick, and scarcely recovered your disease. Withdraw yourself out of the murdering press. Hazard not so till safety of us all.
Go, slave, and preach unto the droughty earth. Persuade it, if thou canst, to shun the rain. My soul to death is thirsty for revenge. Rush through the ranks. Let the proud Christians know that Abdelmelec was their overthrow.
And they exit running. Scene 25. Enter Sebastian.
The sun so heats our armor with his beams that it doth bum and scar our very flesh, that when we would stretch out our arms to strike, our parched sinews crack like parchment scrolls and fly in sunder, that our arms stands out stiff as our lances, and our swords fall down and stick their envious points into the earth.
Enter Muly Mahomet, panting for breath.
There never was yet such a heat before, since Phaeton set this universe on fire, that the earth, fearing he had lived again and got into the chariot of the sun, opens her wide mouth like a gaping wall.
Muly Mahomet, say, how stands the day?
Fly, Sebastian, for the foe prevails. Dougal, who led 5,000 men of war, is now revolted to the enemy. Farewell, Sebastian. This our latest night I will essay to save myself by flight.
Enter a company set upon Sebastian, and they kill him. Dies Sebastian. Enter a soldier bringing in Abdelmelec on his back. Muly Mahomet following.
I ever feared that my courageous brother would wade so far into this storm of war that he would be too lavish of his person.
My lord, he died not by the dint of sword, but being overcome with toil and heat, not well recovered from his dangerous sickness, sank down for faintness and gave up his soul.
In the secretest manner that thou canst devise, conveil his royal corpse into our tent, for if his death should once be blown abroad, it were a means to overthrow the day.
Enter a soldier running. Exit soldier carrying his body.
Speak, slave. Who has the advantage of the day?
Our valiant Turks and Moors have got the field. Sebastian slain, Muly Mahomet fled, and Abdelmelec crowned with victory.
Shine, glorious sun, and bear unto the west news of our conquest, and fright those that dwell under our feet with terror of our name. Rein in thy fiery palfreys yet a while, and trot them softly on those airy planks to look upon the glory of the day.
And they exit. Scene 26. Enter Don Antonio, disguised like a priest, fearfully looking about him.
Oh, poor Antonio. Which way canst thou take? A dreadful horror dogs thee at the heels. Sebastian slain, Muly Mohammed fled. All Portingales, brave infantry slain, and not a man of mark or note alive. Thou glad to hide me in a priest's disguise, thy chaplain that came with thee into the war, and in this battle likewise lost his life. O heaven, be thou pleased, this may yet stand instead. If not, thy will then be accomplished.
Enter 3 or 4 Turkish soldiers.
See here, a priest left yet alive. Sarah, come hither. How hast thou escaped? What, shall we kill him?
No, kill him not. First let's ransack him. What hast thou, Sirrah, that may save thy life?
All that I have, my friends, I'll give you freely, so it may please ye but to save my life, which to destroy ye will do you little good.
Come then, be brief. Let's see, what hast thou?
This purse containeth all the coin I have. These bracelets my dead lord bestowed on me, that if I escaped I might remember him in my devotions and my daily prayers.
Whose priest wast thou?
Ferdinand, Duke of Averos.
Well, listen, fellows. 'Twill do us little good to kill him, when we may make benefit by selling of him, to be some man's slave. And now I call to mind the wealthy Moor, Abdelmelec, that dwells here in the Fess. He'll give as much as any man. How say ye, shall it be so?
No better counsel can be.
Thy will, O God, be done, whate'er become of me.
And they exit. Scene 27. Enter chorus.
Thus of Alcazar's battle in one day, 3 kings at once did lose their hapless lives. Your gentle favour must we needs entreat, for rude presenting such a royal fight, which more imagination must supply than all our utmost strength can reach unto. Suppose the soldiers who you saw surprised, the poor dismayed Prince Antonio, have sold him to the wealthy Moor they talked of, and at such time as needs must be allowed, already he have passed in servitude. Sit now and see unto our story's end all those mishaps that this poor prince attend.
And there we're going to pause there in a slightly artificial way, which I'll explain later on. Lots of action, lots of people running on and stuff going on and fighting. Sebastian's dead. A body's been carried on, Abdelmelec, on his back. It's in Alcazar there's a lengthy dispute, in a chair and stuff, whereas here it's just someone just drag him on and just carry him around. Action, excitement, wild things, stuff. Helen.
Who's the third king? There's Portugal and Abdelmelec. Who's the third?
One of the Mulys.
Well, isn't it? Surely Muly Mohammed will style himself a king, I would have thought.
Okay.
I'm assuming off the top of my head. I mean, was it 5 armies there? I mean, there were lots of forces. It was quite complicated.
He's not dead though, is he?
Which one?
Muly Mohammed.
No, don't think so.
No, but there's also Muly Hamnet.
Yeah.
Is he dead?
I lost count.
I thought one of them was.
Yeah,
I think one of the Mullies, I think, has died.
In Alcazar, Muly Mohammed, I think, is drowned in the river, galloping across it.
Yeah, there might be people, who should be dead or are dead, or I'm not sure. If we're confused, then that's what an audience will be. That's fine. That's the data we're trying to get. Explicating things. Lois.
Yeah, I think this terribly anticlimactic way that Sebastian is just killed by a crowd around him is presumably because I think his body was never found, and that's why there were all these rumors that he was still alive somewhere.
Well, interesting. I don't recall him getting that much of a death in Alcazar either. There was that a lot of the deaths are quite swift. And the thing is, anything that involves sustained action like that could go on for ages. I mean, that could be a massive fight scene between him and a company of people. That could be a huge little, potentially huge bit of action. Stage directions always make things feel small when they potentially could be big.
Yeah,
they don't take very long for a starter. But yeah, we've got an awful lot of passing and retiring and fighting going on here. Okay, we have 2 more scenes sort of to go. So we have paused artificially in what is in the original manuscript, the chorus. The chorus actually would continue. But we are going to follow the lead of the Revels edition, edited by Charles Edelman, in terms of slightly moving some of the action around to see whether that is a solution to some of the textual problems that the very end of the play has. So we're going to put that into practice here. So what we're calling Scene 28, enter Stukeley, faint and weary, being wounded with him, Vernon!
Come, noble Vernon. That I meet you here, were the day far more bloody than it is, our hope more desperate, and our lives beset with greater peril than we can devise. Yet should I laugh at death, and think this field but as an easy bed to sleep upon.
Oh, Master Stukeley, since there now remains no way but one, and life must have end, pardon my speech, if in a word or two, whilst here we breathe thus, I discharge my soul. I must confess, your presence here I have shunned, not that I hate you, but because sorry. May I begin? I must confess, your presence I have shunned, not that I hate you, but because thereby that grief which I did study to forget was still renewed. And therefore, when we met in Ireland, Spain, and at the last in Rome, and that I saw I could no way direct my course, but always you were in my way, I thought if Europe I forsook, that then we should be far enough disjoined. But lo, even here in Africa we are met again, and now there is no parting but by death.
And then I hope that we shall meet in heaven. Why, Master Vernon, in our birth we two were so ordained to be of one self-heart, to love one woman, breathe one country air, and now at last, as we have sympathized in our affections, led one kind of life, so now we both shall die one kind of death, in which let this our special comfort be, that though this parched earth of Barbary drink no more English blood but of us twain, yet with this blood of ours the blood of kings shall be commixed, and with their fame, our fame shall be eternized in the mouths of men.
Forgive me then my former fond conceits. In the ere we die, let us embrace like friends.
Forgive me, rather, that must die before I can requite the friendship you have shown.
And they embrace.
So, this is all the will and testament that we can make. Our bodies we bequeath to earth, from whence they came, our souls to heaven. But for a passing bell to toll our knell, ourselves will play the sextons, and our swords shall ring our farewell on the burgonets of these bloodthirsty and uncivil Turks.
And enter 4 or 5 Italian soldiers. They lay hands on him.
Lay hands upon him, sirs.
Soldiers, what mean ye? Will ye mutinize?
He's your leader. Do you seek his life?
To lead us to destruction. But if he had kept his oath, he swore unto the Pope, we had been safe in Ireland, where now we perish here in Africa. But before we taste of death, we vow to see him dead. Then, brave Italians, stab him to the heart that hath so wickedly bereaved your lives.
First, villains, you shall triumph in my death, and either kill me too or set him free.
Hear me, ye bloody villains.
Stab him, soldiers.
Vernon fights with some of them to save Stukeley and is slain of them. In the meanwhile, the rest stab Stukeley.
Ah, have you slain my friend?
Yet doth he prate.
England, farewell. What fortune never yet did cross Tom Stukeley in? To show her frown, by treason suffers him to be o'erthrown.
And he dies. Then we're going to rejoin the manuscript from the earlier scene, for scene 29. After Antonio's going out, enter Muly Mahomet with victory.
The certain number that can yet be found, and of the Christian lords, the Duke of Avero and the Bishop of Coimbra and Oporto, the Irish Marquis Stukeley, Count Tavara, 200 of the chief nobility of Portingale, and Muly Mahomet, passing in the ford of swift Larissa to escape the fight, his horse and he both drowned in the river.
See that the body of Sebastian have Christian and kingly burial after his country manner. For in life a braver spirit never lived upon the same. And let the Christian bodies be interred. For Muly Mahomet, let his skin be flayed from off the flesh from foot unto the head, and stuffed within, and so be borne about through all the parts of our dominions, to terrify the like that shall pursue to lift their swords against their sovereign. And in memorial of this victory, for ever after, let this 4th of August, kept holy to the service of our God, through all our kingdoms and dominions.
And thus we run out of text. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? The moment we have that scene with Stukeley and Vernon, you're just suddenly going, "Hey, this is the play we came in on." Do you remember this? This is quite fun. This is really interesting. They keep talking about when they met in Rome, and they didn't meet in Rome, and there was this whole thing about going to Rome that it feels like they cut to put in more Alcazar stuff, and it feels like we were robbed of a scene with Vernon in Rome, which would also have explained why Stukeley was here, because he was going to raise troops to go to Ireland and then he got lost, which again feels more in connection with the first half of the play. God damn it. Helen.
Yeah, I think also in Rome he would get his title of Marquis.
Yeah.
Which never gets explained otherwise.
Which constantly gets mentioned in this half of the play. Yeah. I really like that scene with Vernon. Especially Eric, just stumbling over the line. Not that I hate you,
but
much.
When I see you, I am reminded of my grief.
Yeah. And it's just I keep meeting you, and it's hey, let's be friends at the end, and they embrace, and everything's fine.
So touching.
I actually quite like. I actually felt weirdly moved. Lynn.
But Vernon is, if he's not a walking, talking, no good deed goes unpunished. I tried to do the right thing because I thought that my girl was in love with you, and like everything has gone to shit since then. Guy never learns.
Yeah, no, and he dies as he has lived, trying to aid Stukeley.
It's the right thing.
He steps in his way, and in the meanwhile, the rest of them still kill Stukeley anyway. I mean, there's something actually tragically ironic about that whole situation. And of course, Vernon has it's entirely this part of, this completely non-historical figure has got nothing to do, he's entirely invented. I mean, almost all of these people are non-historical, really, but that's the story of this play, is Vernon and Stukeley's death embrace of fate, keep pushing them together. That's what this play's really about. I've decided.
Yeah.
Unilaterally. I don't care what anyone else says now. Sarah.
Well, I think we've answered the question today that you asked on day one, which is where do we make cuts in this play? Because like, yeah, most of that we've read today you could cut, I would say. I thought the bit about Stukeley thinking that Muly was cool, I thought that was kind of that was kind of important for his character development, and also in the way it circled back to who he was earlier on in the play. But yeah, you could kind of cut most of that and skip straight to that scene with Vernon and then just finish it.
I almost feel that all you need to do is have a walking bubble around Stukeley. So all of the stuff where he's not really involved just whizzes by and he misses. And it doesn't matter, because I don't think it matters why any of this stuff is happening, actually. And I mean, I do feel we need to commission a short sequence in Rome, because I feel we need to have that scene with Vernon and to reinstate that, if that was part of an original, that then, because of the legacy of Alcazar, the play, was jettisoned, and we got this material in instead. I mean, if that's the narrative of how the text ended up as it has. Anyone want to defend the play as it stands? Did everyone enjoy it? I mean, there is, in a sense, it's a not uninteresting take on the Battle of Alcazar, this sequence. Almost as a separate play in its own right, as another thing to go with Alcazar, but it doesn't fit the rest of the play, is its big problem. But Lynn, then Lois.
Oh, I have a question. Can it be explained why Stukeley decides to drag his troops to this conflict in the East rather than taking them to Ireland as the Pope had intended? Is that ever explained? Does history explain that? What's going on there?
The chorus
don't turn against it.
The chorus does briefly reference it. Because and we had this discussion with Alcazar. I think it's basically he just got lost. I don't know whether history has a better answer, but basically he never got anywhere near Ireland. He had all these troops, and they were going, and they just stumbled across each other, and they went, "Hi, are you going to join us?" And I went, not sure. In Alcazar, they actually spend quite a lot of time going, "Are you going to join us, Stukeley? Are you going to come with us? Are you coming with us? Maybe you'd like to come with us. We could kill you, or you could come with us. Which would you like?" And that sort of choice. And that's got quite an interesting scene, actually, because Stukeley isn't anywhere nearly as the same character in Alcazar as he is here. I mean, there's something a bit different. He's a much more of a walk-on part in that. Lois.
Oh yeah, one thing that puzzles me is I'm pretty sure in Alcazar, the villain is Muly Mahomet, and he's the one that drowns. And that I don't know quite. I think somebody's got Muly Mahomet and Muly Hamet confused, which isn't surprising. I can't tell which is which either. But I'd have to look at Alcazar again. But I'm pretty sure that was that way
I
around.
think it's just the text is just slightly wrong here. The text that was said there. So yeah, it is Muly Mahomet who drowns at the ford. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the guy that's winding up the play and is Muly Hamet.
Yes.
Okay.
You had the same issue in Alcazar as well, because you had Muly Mahomet and his son, who was also Muly Mahomet, and then you had Muly Mahomet Seth. And you only knew when it distinguished it and when they were together, who was whom. And I wonder if there's maybe the same problem going on here with that, or a similar type problem rather.
Yeah. And I, having just run it following what the Revels text did with the player, I don't feel that their solution is a better solution than other options. I definitely feels like the ending is untidy and that there are some gaps, and there are some clear problems. But I don't think this solution is the right solution. But then we're talking about doing horrible things to this text anyway. So
this play, I mean, without having been here the first. Sorry, I'm just like cutting in. You haven't cool.
Go for it.
Yeah. Without having been here the first 2 days, this doesn't come up as one of the red flag plays of the ones that are problematic texts. It does in some studies, but it's not, for example, in Laurie Maguire's text as one of the suspect texts, which already is saying to me probably like it probably could just, I mean, lots of the texts that are analyzed in that anyway are fine. They can be played through. I don't know, because I wasn't here every other day, but I would want to see how it was as it was printed rather than with the Rebels' thought.
Yeah,
it.
I have to say I regretted it the moment I sent out the scripts as they were. But we tried it that way. It's interesting. Wiggins in his catalogue doesn't list it as a complete play.
Right, I saw that he did. He said that too. But then I was reading one of his articles on it, and he goes on to talk about just a lot of plays that were lost but somehow contributed to this play. I'm thinking, okay. I don't know how you arrived to that conclusion if a play is lost, that this was a source material for that, but okay.
But anyway, there's definitely enough to stage, and there's enough to. I mean, you could, broadly speaking, run it as it is, and it would just about work. And so there is a bit of confusion about precisely how the play ends, but I'm happy for it to end on Stukeley's death. Actually, regardless of the slight continuity error that creates when people refer to him being dead before he dies. But make it a flashback. It could be a flashback. It'd be the first theatrical flashback recorded. That's what it is. Okay, I've decided that as well. We're into extra time by quite a bit. So final thoughts from around the room. I'll go to Alan first because he's waving.
Yeah, I mean, my thought on the cuts is basically scene 20 through about 27 goes its entirety, both the choruses and all of the precede reprise of Alcazar. Whether you need to find a page worth of material to replace that, which would have beneficial effects in terms of cutting the length of the whole damn thing. But basically, it just sort of loses focus and point, to my mind, from that point at which the chorus is brought on. Because it's just, Alcazar did well last season, let's shove it on again, and, we'll get a few more bums on pews.
I don't think. I think once you've started the Spanish court sequence onwards, you have to keep some of what follows. It might be a bit more surgical than that. But it's definitely the second half of the play is the section where I'm thinking that's where most of the material goes, because I thought the first half of the play was delightful mostly and really nice. I mean, it wasn't nice because a lot of the times he was a bastard, but
it works.
It structurally worked very nicely. Briony, any final thoughts? You've been very, very mixed. I felt so far. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't. It kind of lost me after the first session a little bit. It started to drift into this war play, which is doing a very different job to the comical history that we started with, and the sort of the character has almost dimmed a bit as it's got more into this other war side of it. And in terms of like we've read a few war-y type plays. I think I might have been here when we read Alcazar. It's ringing faint bells. And it was more engaging to me than some of those others that we've done. But I was really enjoying the first part of it, and this huge ridiculous character of Stukeley and the poor Vernon and the relationship that they had, and just I don't know, the things that I enjoyed most about the play kind of disappeared a bit for me. Some of the language was quite beautiful. It wasn't the worst, but I preferred where it started to where it ended.
Helen, any final thoughts?
I don't think I could really improve on what Briony said. If work could be done on this, especially taking out the Battle of Alcazar, except for Stukeley's bits, and sticking in some Rome, then I think we'd have a very nice story of the relationship between Vernon and Stukeley, which would make a good play.
Dan, you've only been here for this session. Any final thoughts?
you know me, I'm not going to be advocating rewriting any scenes. So I'd rather do stage the text and see how it flows. And because that's what was written, I'm not saying that makes it necessarily a good play or not, but that's what I'd be interested in watching. And I would really be interested in seeing the Irish scene, because I think it's a really interesting artifact to have an actual scene rewritten, inserted into the text, but just written with supposedly an Irish dialect. Just as something that they did back in the day, or at least this playwright happened to do back in the day in terms of revision or whatnot, just to see what it adds to it or subtracts from the play.
I mean, the reason we brought up cuts actually relatively early on was just, it's a long play, and it's a big ask to actually do it in one go. It's doable as long as you warn the audience sufficiently in advance. But it is a bit of a monster, even before we get to the problem of how or our perceptions of the problem of the flow of the text. We could, of course, be wrong. We have been before. Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the second bit, third bit. Sorry, third bit. Yeah, I don't know what they were on. Sorry, it's one of those days where I woke up at 4:30 and I don't know what is going on. Yeah, it kind of what's it called? I think the action scenes are interesting, but then it kind of deviates from the whole point of the life and death of Captain Stukeley. Although I guess if this were film, you would just keep it as it is, because it's kind of it's called not fodder, but backdrop, context, that kind of thing. If you do a film about, I don't know, World War II, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of that, Dunkirk or something, I don't know, you kind of want sort of the atmosphere, so you wouldn't, removing stuff would not help, and if you but I think removing maybe the choruses, because if you do that in action, then it kind of, I don't know if you, if you made a film of it, obviously you wouldn't need the choruses necessarily. You would have voiceovers or whatever. But then if you had, if you had them reflected in action, then maybe you wouldn't need them. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I am intrigued and also kind of, about this play. Just the sort of death scene of going, not that I hate you, but I'll die with you. Yeah.
Lois, any final thoughts?
Well, two things. One is that I now see why there were some stage directions that really puzzled me. Those must be those of the Rebels editor. And just glancing at that.
No. There's not. All I did was just move some stuff functionally around. Otherwise, it's there are some odd stage directions that have make no sense. I just didn't flag them up.
Oh. Well, yeah, I don't know. There's some that I just can't believe could have been in the original text. But anyway, and it was interesting looking at that, presumably the original Irish scene, what a difference accent makes. It's got these stupid jokes like making somebody say turd instead of third, which you find elsewhere as well, making people look ridiculous by their pronunciation. Whereas the scene as we read it was not ridiculous at all. And these seemed like, perfectly credible Irish soldiers and not idiots. The other thing is that I think one could make this thing work in the final scenes by, it would be a sort of modern technique of just cutting very heavily, but having people come on and just saying the odd speech here, the odd speech there, to make it clear what's going on, indicating very rapid movement toward the Battle of Alcazar, someone doing a hooray, wonderful to see you, Stukeley. Here's a real warrior. I'm on this side, but just really quickly. And then, just get that sense of cumulative pressure towards fighting and death.
Yes, no, that was my thought on a sort of more surgical approach of filleting rather than wholesale dumping. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Nothing that hasn't already been said, really. Fillet it. Maybe add in a Rome scene if you want to. It just started so well. It's the curse. It's the curse of the final. It's not even a final act. It's the curse, but it kind of is. I mean, it kind of. I don't know why it isn't written in acts, because it is. It does kind of definitely have 3 acts. But I thought there was quite a lot of good stuff in the Spanish section. But today just did make me want to chew my own leg off a bit. So
it's sort of written in 4 acts, because we have this stuff in Spain, and then we have Alcazar, because we have all the stuff with the governor and his wife, which doesn't really then feed into this latter stage as well.
Yeah, no, I was forgetting
because
about
the governor
Ireland.
goes, "I will get you, Gadget," and then doesn't.
I was completely forgetting about Ireland. Yeah, no, 4 acts. Yeah, and the first 3 acts I think are pretty good. You can start to trim maybe a little bit in Act 3 in Spain, but a lot of it's really good. And then I don't know, it all goes pear-shaped. It's like the reputation of the previous play just completely does for it. But I do love that scene with Vernon and Stukeley. So yeah, there is stuff there to be, winnowed.
Eric, did you want me to come back to you?
I was just gonna say that, like, okay, I can't really remember what the first session was about, because like it's such a long play. But then there's a part of me going, we should just run it at pace to see what happens, kind of like we've done with other plays, just like sort of to defend the play, maybe minus certain parts, but I mean, minus weird racist things, and just. Yeah, I don't know. There's like a part of me going, in a film, if you were doing this as a film, you wouldn't remember the beginning. You wouldn't remember the middle bit. You would remember the end. So is it going to make you stay in your seat till the end, basically?
Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, as you guys might already perceive, I am the evil opposite of Dan. And I say, get out your editor's machete and don't apologize. And like Rob, I am really interested in the Vernon Stukeley relationship. I think that's what the play could definitely be about. It starts with Vernon. I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, that's a really interesting choice. It doesn't start with Stukeley and like, what a manly man, and here he is, the charming cad. It starts with Vernon and his relationship with his prospective father-in-law. So I think that's to me, that could be the spine. That's the through line. And someone said something in the chat, maybe jokingly, maybe not, that Vernon has an attachment to Stukeley that is maybe quite complex and maybe even slightly homoerotic. He can't seem to get rid of him. They are, in a way, I think you should play them as versions of each other. If you cast men that looked really similar and had similar mannerisms and stuff, because in a way, I think Stukeley is the man that Vernon wishes he was. I wish I could be that dashing. I wish I could be that charming. I wish I could be that
selfish.
Yeah, and then but Vernon is the man that Stukeley ought to try to be. But they never actually see that. And that's kind of the sad irony, that is, as much as they kind of have this attachment to each other, they can't make a whole person together.
There's isn't there a Brecht play that has 2 people locked in combat and sort of in a much more aggressive way? I'm wondering whether there's an interesting parallel. And just taking a route to production. Remember that the odds on our starting point would be to do something that is incredibly cut down with a small cast. So actually, starting with Stukeley and Vernon as a starting point is your route in, because that creates something that's actually containable with a bit of narration. So expansion of the chorus. The people wanting to leap in. Sarah and then Lois.
Yeah, it was me who suggested in the chat that you could direct this as a sort of a love story between Vernon and Stukeley, that Vernon is actually in love with Stukeley, that he's been running away from him all this time, and he keeps bumping into him. And then you could play that final scene as if you wanted to, as a kind of really touching reunion, and like a sort of culminating love scene. And I wasn't joking. If I was directing this, I don't know if that's entirely where I would take it. I'm not sure, but I would certainly be tempted to take it off in that direction.
Yeah.
And certainly it's something that I would want my actors to think about.
Whereas
Yeah.
I'm more on the cat came back strata. The very next day the cat came back. They thought it was a goner. The cat came back. It just wouldn't stay away. Lois.
Yeah, there are all sorts of ways one could take it. I mean, once someone suggested that idea that they're kind of one is the shadow of the other, or that they're like twins. I mean, this does in fact turn up in quite a lot of plays, the notion that one person is what the other might have been. I'm thinking particularly of Botello and Antonio in The Duchess of Malfi, where they are kind of held parallel, and one of them finally, of course, kills the other. But and I think quite often when you get two equally interesting characters, there's some such sense that there's something dangerous about two things being too comparable. But there's also a kind of story of, I don't know, you could even play it as Stukeley's obsession with honor and Vernon's obsession with virtue, and how both of them end up leading nowhere. Or you could emphasize that at the beginning of the play, two people, both Vernon and Nell, are dazzled by Stukeley, and both discover that they've made a mistake. And after all, the point in the final scene is that these Italian soldiers, who nobody's paid any attention to, the rank and file, suddenly realize that they've been betrayed by him and actually do something about it, unlike all the other people who have just let him seduce them. So, I mean, there are quite a lot of through lines you could take.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's a big irony there about those soldiers killing him, because the soldiers so far have just been going, "What a guy! Isn't he
Yeah.
great?"
Yeah.
Rachel, we haven't had a final thought from you. You're allowed not to have one if you don't want one.
No, Dan put in the chat that he'd like to see this with the Battle of Alcazar. I would like to see this back to back with the Battle of Alcazar. Even though there's a lot of troublesome elements that do come up, I think just because of the period and the geography that it's going into Africa, and knowing the background of what happens, that, hindsight being 2020 of what happens with the world and slavery and things, that even though this is told from a very European perspective, it is interesting to get some of this international history that isn't really something that's talked about now, that's not really focused on. So it was enjoyable in that way. The whole honor and virtue angles, or whatever Stukeley and Vernon, their highest, want to do things for in this play and what drove them, it's still very much that sausage fest for me. So from those angles, I wasn't feeling it that much, but I do think that there's a lot of good points in this, even though it's not my type of play. Like, the verse was very enjoyable today for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the moral of the sausage fest is they died. So maybe don't do that. Don't do that thing, because you die. Any other final thoughts to throw in, Briony?
Yeah, I did put it in the chat, but I kind of felt a bit of a similarity with the way that the relationship between Aaron Burr and Hamilton was played out in the musical, in that it's two guys who are on a fairly similar career trajectory, and one of them is more honourable than the other, and yet the honourable one isn't the one that everything goes right for all the time. And I just kind of like that comparison.
Well, we have gone massively over time on this one. It was a long play, and that's without even doing the alternative scene 7. All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
Yet doth he prate.